It's been almost a year since freight elevators were first introduced to Star Citizen. They were supposed to revolutionize the way we move cargo on planetary surfaces. Let us unload from our ships, build outposts, and lay the groundwork for real player-driven logistics. But as of patch 4.2.1, they still don't work. And now they're not just a minor annoyance. They're actively breaking the very missions and events they were meant to support, including the biggest one we've seen in months, and I'd say arguably one of the more fun ones. Now, just to be clear, I'm not here to complain just for the sake of it. This is about a core system in Star Citizen that needs to be working, because if it isn't, everything else suffers. Base building, dynamic economy, player infrastructure. All of those future systems, they depend on freight elevators actually doing their job. Now, these elevators were introduced back in 2024 as a foundational piece for cargo and mission gameplay. And now in 4.2.1, they're mission critical in the race for Stanton event. Yet instead of elevating gameplay, pun absolutely intended, they're stalling it out. And the longer this goes unfixed, the more it threatens to drag down the very features we've been waiting years to see. It's yet another entry in a long list of gameplay loops that failed to work properly. So let's talk about what's actually happening, because this isn't just about frustration, this is about function. Right now, freight elevators are failing on almost every front. No interaction prompts, crates mysteriously block the entire elevator from deploying, and in some cases, it just doesn't show up at all. You call the elevator, wait, and absolutely nothing happens. Or worse, it shows up halfway and soft locks the entire interaction. And it's not just you, it's not just me. The entire community has been flooding Spectrum, Reddit, and the issue council with these reports since their initial implementation. People are getting stuck on missions. Cargo is vanishing or can't be stored. And the most basic loop, pick something up, bring it back, and store it, is breaking down in the exact moment players need it to work. Now, CIG did acknowledge this in the latest patch notes, listing it as a known issue. But the wording makes it sound kind of like a fringe problem, when in reality, it's anything but. This isn't rare, it's repeatable. And it ruins core loops the moment they matter. We're not talking edge case bugs here, we're talking about a system that breaks under completely normal use. And I want to give you a direct example because I jumped into the Stormbreaker activity right when it launched. My org cleared out the facility, took out the Apex Valacar, and started retrieving the pearls and teeth and loading them into the freight elevators to store into our inventory. Only we couldn't. The items wouldn't register. The terminal wouldn't allow us to lower the elevator. We got everything we needed, cleared the entire ASD research station, and then couldn't finish the activity. We tried everything, and still it was broken. And here's the thing, this wasn't just some side objective. Stormbreaker was built around this system. You find rare materials, you store them using the freight elevator, and you collect the Valacar pearls and teeth, and even trade them for Wicklow favor. But without crafting or base building in place, it's more of a setup for systems that haven't arrived yet. It's just yet another loop that dies right there. An activity built on logistics brought down by the very freight elevators it depends on. Now, if you've experienced any of this, or if you care about Star Citizen finally realizing its promise of logistics, teamwork, a dynamic economy, and grounded progression, consider subscribing. I cover these systems in depth every week, and your support helps keep these conversations alive. Now, here's where things go from frustrating to kind of disappointing. Distribution centers were added back in 3.23, and when they first arrived, there was genuine excitement for them. CIG pitched them as regional hubs, places where we could finally play planet-side without needing to quantum across the entire system. They were supposed to be where you could pick up local contracts, move cargo between nearby outposts and settlements, and engage in deeper mission chains tied to faction control and even reputation or possible trade routes. They even mentioned underground sections, which are complex facilities below the surface where cargo routing, FPS mining zones, immersive logistics, and more FPS-centric gameplay would one day take place. But that future still never showed up. What we got is a mostly lifeless structure, a couple of terminals, and a loading zone where nothing meaningful ever really happens. You walk in hoping for gameplay, and instead you're sent 50 million kilometers across the system for a basic delivery mission. Now, even in the Regen Crisis, an event centered entirely around cargo handling, supply runs, and advancing the story through logistics, distribution centers were left out completely. CIG had the perfect opportunity to utilize these centers during the event and passed it up again. And I get it, features and content take time, but this isn't a new location. This is a system that's already in the game, already built, and just sitting there. In a perfect world, players should be able to stay around Microtech or Hurston for hours, stack up on missions and cargo, move between outposts, and never need to leave local space to have fun. Instead, the game constantly pushes you to travel, to leave the planet, bounce between moons, or haul things across systems just to stay active or profitable. Distribution centers could have anchored that local loop for so many players. They could have supported the Regen Crisis. They could have breathed more life into every planet. But right now, they're still just background art. And this is why freight elevators aren't just a random gameplay feature. They're the foundation for everything now and everything coming next. Base building alone will require you to move raw materials, components, and resources up from a landing pad and refine materials. Logistics missions, those crates need to load in, be delivered, and offloaded smoothly without breaking, whether that's done automatically or by hand. The dynamic economy in the future will depend on the seamless flow of goods between players, outposts, and stations once it's fully in the game. Even player bases will eventually likely evolve to become massive refineries, manufacturing plants, or trade outposts players go to. But if the elevator between the landing pad and the main structure breaks down because a box was set down in the wrong spot, then none of it matters. Until I can reliably load crates without breaking a mission, how are we supposed to scale this into actual supply chains, player-run construction, or even into territory control and long-haul operations? We're not asking for perfection, we're asking for functionality. Because these systems aren't just immersive fluff. They're now the connective tissue between Star Citizen's present and its future. Let's be clear, Star Citizen has evolved. The vision is much bigger than it ever was. We're looking at a future with more physicalized cargo, deep logistics, modular base construction, a dynamic economy, and player shops and markets. Crafting is coming. Territory control will likely be coming as well in the future. Entire loops will depend on player-driven supply chains and physical cargo movement. But the problem is that freight elevators are still unreliable. Distribution centers remain empty husks. And when a patch like 4.2.1 rolls out with an event that leans on these systems, everything fragile about them breaks wide. In a game where sessions can last hours and risk is part of the thrill, nothing kills motivation faster than a core system failing at the finish line. Star Citizen is building vertically. Now, we're obviously not getting more layers this year. CIG is still focused on content and basic playability. But they are coming. More loops, more systems, and deeper interdependencies that will eventually tie the game together. But if that foundation underneath is cracked, all that complexity starts to collapse under its own weight. Crafting will need working freight transfer. Outposts depend on reliable elevators and scalable infrastructure. And trade networks will require actual hubs with functional logistics. Without those basics working, and I mean reliably, not 50% or 70% of the time, players will never be able to engage with the big picture. They won't be able to build, invest, or even trust that their time won't be wasted. And that's the heart of it. You can sell a dream, but if the glue that holds it together doesn't work, people will ultimately stop showing up until it's much further along. So what needs to change realistically before the year ends? Not flashy new features, not a bigger patch, just fixes to the tools and gameplay that we already have. First, freight elevators need a reset protocol. If one soft locks, it should detect that and either clear itself or allow a forced reset by the player or server. Second, obstruction logic. Tiny boxes or minor clutter shouldn't brick an entire mission. Either ignore small debris or move it out of the way automatically, or delete it. Next, distribution centers. They were sold as regional hubs, but right now they're lifeless locations, just like cargo decks on stations. We need loopable mission chains, faction progression, and trade and hauling contracts that build off proximity and scale. And underground areas? They were shown. They looked nearly finished in some regards. But when they finally arrive in the verse, they need to actually be used. Not just as a cool detail, but as part of an actual gameplay loop. Finally, future events like the continuation of the Regen Crisis should integrate these systems. Ensure freight elevators work. Build event progression around functioning supply lines and localized planetary logistics so players can choose to stay within a region and still contribute meaningfully, instead of being forced to quantum across the entire system for basic tasks. That's how you reinforce systems. That's how you test them under pressure. Because this isn't about perfection. This is about reliability. And in a game where time is often your most valuable resource, players need to trust that the tools they use won't betray them. They'll forgive minor bugs and even wait for more polish, but they won't keep investing in a system that breaks right when it's needed most. So now I want to hear from you. Have freight elevators broken a mission for you lately? Have you run into a bug that stalled your cargo run or found yourself staring at a stuck platform, wondering why this is still a problem almost a year later? Drop your story in the comments, whether it's a bug, a workaround that you figured out, or just your thoughts on how these systems could be better utilized. Because we all want this game to grow, but it can't evolve if the foundation keeps slipping out from under us. And hey, if this kind of deep dive matters to you and you want more conversations around logistics, base building, player economy, and how all of this could actually fit together one day, consider becoming a channel member. It helps support the work that goes into making these videos and keeps this kind of feedback flowing back to the community, and you'll get special access to members-only channels in my Discord and more. And if you haven't seen it yet, check out my last video where we explore how Star Citizen could finally balance PvP and PvE using risk zones, contracts, and consequences that actually matter. As always, thanks for watching. Fly safe, pilots, and I'll see you in the verse. Havoc out.